I'll call this meeting of the Urbana Public Television Commission to order on Friday, March 11th at 12:20 p.m. Would the clerk call the roll?
Sure. Chair Peter Folk.
Present.
Sarah Bennett.
Present.
Chris Fuller is not present. Marie Polk is not present. Mark Schultz.
Present.
And Dale Cinder sent notification ahead of time that he would be unable to attend. So we do need to read the statement about the governor's order.
All right. Pursuant to the gubernatorial disaster proclamation and the declaration of emergency for the city of Urbana, Illinois, related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with changes to the Open Meetings Act, Public Act PA 101-0640, it has been determined that an in-person public meeting is not prudent or safe at this time. Members of the public body will attend remotely using Zoom webinar. Members of the public may attend via Zoom or view meetings remotely on Urbana Public Television through Comcast Xfinity on channel 6 and 1096, i3 broadband on channel 6, AT&T UVerse on channel 99, and streamed on the web at https://livestream.com. That's livestream.com/Urbana. Do we have minutes from a prior meeting to approve?
So I neglected to send those out, and that was my mistake. So we don't have a quorum anyway. So we're going to punt those minutes from June. They'll go all the way to this June.
Okay, sounds good. Did we have any correspondence this quarter?
The only correspondence was Commissioner Cinder saying he wasn't going to be able to make the meeting.
Okay. There's a staff report. Would you?
Right. So I would like to deliver the staff report, and when we'll have some conversation because I think these are some important things to know. So first of all, I wanted to give an update on staff transition. Since the prior meeting of the commission, which met last June, there's been a lot of change at UPTV. So I have I'm going to share my screen here. I have a slide just to kind of give a sense of what's going on. So Jason Liggett, who had the title of station manager, well, let's go back in time. 2 to 3 years ago, prior to the pandemic, and time has gone through a warp since then, we had Jake Schumacher was the station manager and Jason Liggett was the production coordinator. And that was our staffing at that time. So then Jake retired and Jason moved up to station manager, and we did not have a production coordinator. That position was vacant, and Jason essentially did everything himself. And that's where we stood all the way through the pandemic. Now we had some camera operators, but really Jason was playing both of those roles. When Jason notified us last fall that he'd be leaving the city, we promoted Burema, who was the production assistant, up to be the production coordinator, which again is the title that Jason had several years ago, but we do not have a station manager right now. And so right now we have one full-time staff person, which is Burema. And then we have some part-time people, and the part-time people are listed on the bottom. Bree Gaspar is our production assistant. She works somewhere between 12 to 15 hours per timesheet, so biweekly. I believe that's right. And then we have, and my Zoom is blocking the order of the names, but it looks like it's Lucas Herzog, Anna Seaman, and Andrew Wayner are the 3 camera operators. And each of them is assigned to different tasks in terms of recording and broadcasting regular meetings. So where we stand right now is that the station manager functions are not occurring, except for the ones that I'm performing. And, so that is a sort of the best way to describe it is that when Jason left, his responsibilities got split between me as the division manager overseeing UPTV and Barema, who was the production coordinator. So I'm fulfilling more of the administrative functions like getting bills paid, getting timesheets approved. And Barema is managing all these Zoom meetings and everything else. That is where we stand right now. And I just want to be clear about the fact that, it's a diminished stance from what we were doing with Jason. And that's something I'm going to talk about when we get to the later topic on the agenda. But the good news is Barema is doing a great job. He's working full time and he's, taken over a lot of responsibilities, and that's been great. And as well, our production assistant Bree is wonderful and the camera operators are great. So the good news is we've got a good team in place for the people who are staffed. So I'm very pleased about that. So that's one part of my staff report is just the update on the transitions. Are there any questions about this org chart or any aspect of that? Okay. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen then. I do want to touch base on a second topic, which relates more to the other side of my role, which is the IT guy. Not as critical for Sarah and Mark, but it is going to be relevant for Peter as well as other commission members who are not representing an organization. So Sarah is representing the library on the board. Mark is representing the Park District. But for everybody who is an individual serving on a city board or commission, and this is not unique to UPTV Commission, this is across all the boards and commissions, we are going to assign city email addresses to all board and commission members who do not have their own Park District or library one. What we want to do here is protect people's privacy. What's unfortunately, because we put people's contact information for the board and commission for the public to be able to contact you, that's exposing people's personal emails. And as you're all aware, in these days of cybersecurity, people are getting scammed. They're getting fake emails that are pretending to be from the mayor and stuff like that. And so we just said, you know what? We want to shield people's private information, personal information. So we're going to be assigning board and commission member emails to all people who are using a personal address. And that would also include, Commissioner Folk, anybody who's using, say, their work address, okay, who doesn't work for a governmental entity. There's another aspect to this, which is Freedom of Information Act requests. All communication that is back and forth with board and commission members in your capacity in that role is subject to Freedom of Information Act record requests. And so it makes it easier for us to fulfill those. This way, we don't have to ask people to pull emails from their personal ones. We can just pull it ourselves. If it was for the library or the Park District, we would just send that request to the library or the Park District and make the similar request. So just a heads up on that. And that's something that we've been working on, and we'll be rolling those out in the next few weeks. So that concludes the staff report.
Okay. Is there an audience that I don't see somewhere?
There is no audience on the webinar.
Okay. So there's no one in the office here, and there's no one on the webinar. So
and no one submitted any email communication either.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there is no unfinished business. So moving on to new business. We have a discussion of UPT's focus moving forward.
Right. So this is the part 2 of the staffing discussion. I want to give everybody a little perspective on UPTV over the past couple of years. If you back yourself up in time to February of 2020, pre-pandemic, different world, UPTV offered a number of different services to either the governments in our area or to the members of the public. So the primary two were that we would record meetings And, and that was in-person meetings at the time. And then the other one was members of the public would come in, for example, on a Saturday afternoon, and they'd record their shows, or other, at other times. And UPTV had staff who was available to help the members of the public with that. And, it's something that we had a schedule of regular shows that were coming in and recording and things like that. That was before the pandemic. During the pandemic, the meetings that we were recording changed to be like this one on Zoom. And, after some initial trials and tribulations, we kind of got the Zoom thing worked out and, kind of got that under control. I will tell you, though, that Zoom meetings are actually more difficult to manage than a traditional camera in-person meeting, because the person who's managing the meeting has to watch the attendees. And if someone raises their hand, they got to promote them, unmute them, mute them. There's a lot of extra effort and stress that goes into doing Zoom meetings for the staff. Also, a number of members of the public during the pandemic stopped. We didn't let them in City Hall for a long time. And so, or if they're going to come in, we still have masking rules in place based on how many people are in proximity. So it's not feasible at this point in time for people to come in and record shows. What we've seen is therefore a drop off in recording of public shows. We do have a few members of the public who were recording on Zoom. And I can speak personally, especially during the beginning of the pandemic. I'm on a show myself, and we were recording a lot more frequently because of Zoom versus having to gather in person. So we did have some shows were prolific during the pandemic. Other ones have sort of diminished or even stopped. So that's where we were up until about last fall when Jason left. And, Jason, to his credit, was doing so much. You've all experienced working with Jason, although Sarah, I don't think you had as much, interaction with him. But UPTV was really a passion for him. And he went way above and beyond the responsibilities of his role. He was doing outreach to the schools. He was recording. He was doing the games at Urbana High. He was the one-man band for UPTV. And it is impossible for anybody to step in and replace all the things that Jason was doing. So when Jason left last fall, we had some conversations and we talked about what is UPTV doing and what are our priorities. And I'll take full responsibility for these decisions because ultimately it was on my plate. Our top priority is governmental meetings. We have a responsibility to broadcast those meetings. We have intergovernmental agreements with the Park District, with the library to broadcast their meetings, as well as city government, city meetings. So that was our top priority. Our second priority is community produced content. That is members of the public of our area, and we define our area pretty broadly. It's not just Urbana, city of Urbana, the whole community, Champaign County, and even beyond Champaign. Community produced content is our second priority. And our third priority, which I told people we were going to stop doing, is outside content. So in the past, UPTV showed content that was produced elsewhere. And we would show it. And the key is there was effort involved for staff to go and download that content, save it, upload it, program it, get everything ready. That effort was the one thing that I told staff that we didn't have the time to do. And I said, if we have free time, great, we'll get to it. But of our priorities, showing some program that was produced in Tennessee or Connecticut that we were showing just because somebody asked us to was our lowest priority. And again, I take full responsibility for that decision. So that's where we are right now. And I actually, in terms of correspondence, I will note that I think we received 3 emails complaining that we had taken programming off that people liked. 2 emails related to Dr. Dreck which is kind of like classic bad movies on Saturday nights, and one related to another show that we took off the air. So what that means is UPTV is broadcasting more frequently as a bulletin board and less frequently as the rich array of content that we were showing 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So that's where we stand right now. With the changes that are occurring around us, in other words, for example, I believe that our next meeting is going to be back in person. So in June, certainly by June, but before June, I believe that the city is going to go away from Zoom meetings and back to in-person meetings. I hope that that also means that we will start having people coming back to the studio to produce content here, that we can broadcast on UPTV. So our top two priorities in my mind, and this is up for discussion, remain the same. Our top two priorities are, meetings and things we have to do, and community produced content. Okay. However, I just want to be real with everybody that the role of a public access channel, in other words, a TV channel that is traditional broadcast TV in 2022 is not what it was in 2012 or in 2002. Streaming video, people cutting the cable cords, all of these things are impacting UPTV, as well as just the ability for anybody to produce content and post it, whether it's on YouTube or if they want to post it using one of the social media applications or whatever. There's just so many more ways for people to produce their own content and get it out to people. And I bring this up for discussion in a sense of, let's talk about where will UPTV be in 5 years? Where will we be in 10 years? And I don't want to put anybody on the spot today. I really want to introduce this topic and have people maybe think about that, and we can return and have a discussion in June. But for right now, I'm happy to hear any comments that the commissioners have.
Would Mark or Sarah like to chime in?
I would concur that the priorities should be local first. And it would be nice to have maybe more outside production come in to be broadcast, just to create more of a diverse look to UPTV. However, given staffing considerations and production considerations, we don't need to put more on the staff than need be, especially when they're trying to put local content on. So I would say if focus on the local content in the meetings, of course. If for some reason we're hard up for content, then maybe we can consider something else. But I would endorse Sanford's thoughts at the moment.
Sarah, did you have something you'd like to add?
Sure. I guess, taking on more pre-pandemic responsibilities really necessitates filling Jason's position, right? So what's the timeline looking like for that? Is it?
It's a good question. One aspect of it is funding. So the station manager position and the production, there are full-time staff positions. The situation was different in 2019 when Jake left, and Jason was able to do both roles essentially at a cost savings. The problem that I face, and it's something that I'm requesting to be staffed in the next fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts in July, but I don't know if that is going to be approved or not. So it's going to be more of a fiscal decision before we get to. Now, if it gets funded, then, we could begin a hiring process as early as June or July and hope to have somebody. But, that would also get back to, what are we hiring somebody to do? And then that gets back to what do we want UPTV to be? But it's a good question, and that's my best answer.
Yeah, I guess I would. I also like Mark, think that you've made a reasonable decision about what, or a reasonable analysis of what the priorities of the station have been and should be. I don't know. I don't know whether to think about UPTV independently of the city itself, or think about it as a part of the city, organization. If I'm thinking about it like in the platonic ideal of what UPTV would be, it would be exactly as you described. It would do the governmental meetings, which are important locally, but it would also have local content, and it would be a hub of that. And I could see someone previously you spent time collecting local content, collecting content that was local, but also content that was interesting but not local. I think that there is probably a lot of local content that is currently not on UPTV. And another thing that the station manager or the production coordinator, I don't know which role that would be, could do is start cataloging that and invite them to submit their shows or have their shows played on UPTV. Or for those of us who don't have a traditional cable service, I've always, well, not always, but since these technologies have come up, I've long thought that the existence of a channel versus the existence of the YouTube account or whatever the thing that you follow on YouTube is, that's kind of the analog. And currently you can follow the UPTV account and you get some of the content, but you don't get it all, because not everybody has agreed to let their stuff be put on YouTube, for example. So finding a way to update the concept of a channel into more of a feed I think that would be the proper progression of this concept into the next few years.
I agree, and I welcome. Apologize for the background noise. I welcome a discussion, continuing on that, because I feel like the YouTube aspect creates an alternate sort of UPTV, and then just to go back to the staffing side, managing the YouTube account becomes an additional burden on staff in addition to programming and managing the cable channel. So, we've been doing kind of both. And again, that was really Jason. Jason, drove us in that direction and did a fabulous job maintaining it. It's just that it's created a burden to maintain, but it's an important one because let's be real. I probably more people are interacting, and I don't have any way to know how many people watch UPTV on TV. That's not information we have access to. But I'm going to say, I'm guessing that more people interact with it on YouTube than watch it on the TV. And maybe, and again, I'm just throwing out ideas for discussion. Maybe our focus shifts more towards the YouTube side of the world, which has one other aspect, which is when we broadcast on TV on channel 6, for a lot of folks, or 99 or whatever, it's standard definition. But on YouTube, it's high definition. And that's a limitation of the fact that we're dealing with this legacy TV technology. And so, we have the ability with an investment of money to broadcast high def, but it wouldn't be on the same channels. It wouldn't be on channel 6. It would be on channel 841 or whatever it is. Whatever they assign us is what it would be.
And we would have to give up the 6 in order to do that. Is that right?
We could still do standard def as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so we wouldn't give up the 6, but it would always be standard def
Mhm.
until TV changes that. You know,
Yeah.
that's outside of our control. So anyway, I appreciate the dialogue. I guess let's just leave this at continue to think about these things, and we can reinvigorate this conversation. But you know, I'm just trying to help the city kind of create a vision for what UPTV should be in the future, because, you know, my concern is, you know, if we don't have some kind of vision that's going to pull us forward, we're just going to continue to focus our time on getting stuff done that we have to get done. And it's, you know, will be more and more of a bulletin board. How about that?
So I'll also add a little bit, just, I mean, I think it's interesting, the makeup of this group. So we have the city, we have the park district, and we have the library. And to me, in my mind, the idea of UPTV is an intersection of those 3 governmental entities. Because it is a recreation, and I could see, I know Urbana's planning a new large, or the park district rather, is planning a new large facility. We had talked about some idea of a public production space. And there are Urbana Park District programs that are sports related. There are Urbana Park District programs that are creative. I could see that fitting in with that. I know that my children love the idea of making videos and would be interested in camps and that kind of thing along those lines. And then the library on its side is, of course, the media organization in the community, and the ability to to catalog and kind of collect the different content that would be a meaningful showcase for our community. That all seems, I guess what I'm saying is, I would encourage those organizations to not just to think about how their vision and their mission could be better fulfilled through a collaboration like this. And I'll add one more that I've always felt should be involved here, is the IMC. That they produce a huge amount of content, or at least did pre-pandemic. I've kind of lost track of what they're doing now. But it seems like it just makes sense that they would be involved along with the school district, which is already involved. And with that in mind, do we have a vacant seat on the commission at this time?
I honestly don't know. We have 6 members, which seems strange because normally I would expect an odd number. So it's possible that there is a vacant seat.
Okay.
I can look into that.
I'll if you would let me know about that, I'll either try and get someone from the IMC to apply, or ask Dale, who's been well involved with the IMC in the past, to maybe serve that as that liaison.
Okay.
All right.
Well, let's segue into the other piece of new business, because I think it's related to this.
Mm-hmm. Discussion UPTV Commission's expectations for future meetings.
So I've always enjoyed the UPTV meetings because of the highlight reel, which was just, one more thing that Jason did on his own to be fabulous, to sort of consolidating the best moments from the quarter. Jason would, he was active on social media, and he would give us, hey, here's our most shared tweet and all this kind of stuff. So in the interim, as long as I'm responsible for these meetings, those things will not be happening. Sorry. So, I'd like to, on the one level, lower expectations for these meetings in terms of the entertainment value. But I would also, and I think this is a message I can carry to some of the commissioners, I'd like to re-emphasize the importance of these discussions for the members to attend. And I am disappointed that we have had a number of meetings over the past few years that have, not been official due to lack of a quorum. So whether that means we should meet less often, that's one option. Whether that means we should find a different time, then, maybe this time doesn't work well. But I would like to make the meetings more meaningful and maybe not as frequent, but it depends on what makes them meaningful. Reactions to that?
Mark and Sarah? Or Sarah and Mark?
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Let's have meetings that do something.
Quarterly is fine with me. If it wants to be less frequent, that's fine. It's an hour out of your day. It's during the lunch hour. Most of us have Outlook calendars or Google calendars or calendar apps on our phones. So we know in a year in advance when the meetings are. So whether they're quarterly, twice a year, or an annual meeting, that's fine. You know when they are, put them in our calendars, block the time out. I mean, if you're on vacation for one, you're on vacation for one, and it can't be helped, but let's make it a priority.
I feel a little bad because I usually attend, but I often somehow, even though it is on my calendar, and I do have a Google Calendar, and I have a phone that has the calendar on it, and it even talks to me and tells me that I'm supposed to be various places. Somehow I still manage to miss these things, even when there's just really no excuse. But I also think that an hour a quarter is not an unreasonable amount, and frankly, to me, less often would be worse. It would reduce the flow of the conversation, and maybe we can either impress on the current members how important it is to attend, or somehow make it more meaningful to them, or find someone in their organization for whom it is. And I also will say that having more of that community engagement is important for bringing people to the meeting, because for example, if we had an Urbana sports, a lot of Urbana sports on here, the person who's producing that, maybe that would be the right person to be on the commission instead of somebody more administrative. But anyway, I appreciate your call to action on that, and if there's anything I could do other than actually being timely, then I will do it.
Understood. Well, and again, on this,
in addition to being timely.
On this one, we already published the calendar of meetings for 2022. So I am not proposing any changes to 2022. And in fact, the remaining meetings appear at the bottom of the agenda. And I believe I sent out a recurring invite as well. But so we will have our June, September, and December meetings. But December would normally be the time that we would identify what our meetings are for 2023. And so by then I would hope to have some clarity on that. So those were my two topics to get your brains flowing, and I will put them on as continuing business on the June agenda.
Sounds good. Is that the end of that discussion, Sanford, as far as I'm concerned?
Yes.
Great. The next item on the agenda is commissioners' comments. I don't have any further comments from either of you. Like, say anything. Mark?
No further comments, except I shared offline that Mark in the Park was on a hiatus. It's our Park District Information Program. It's on hiatus during the pandemic. Also, our graphic designer left. We've hired a new one. who has extensive video editing experience. So we hope to continue, and we plan on continuing Mark in the Parks, actually out on location in the parks, and want to handle all of the production and post-production in-house. And hopefully we can just ship the whole thing off to UPTV and they can just plug it into their program schedule.
Awesome. I will mention that I really enjoy those personally. I don't watch all the high school basketball games. I didn't watch all the high school basketball games because I'm not that much of a sports nut, but I do have kids and I love the parks. So thanks for doing that. All right. With that being said, the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Urbana Public Television Commission will be June 10th, 2022 at 12 noon in the Urbana City Council chambers. It will likely be an in-person meeting, it sounds like, so we encourage
It is
audience to attend.
likely to be, needless to say, we can't predict what's going to happen in the next 3 months, but.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Since we're at the end of the agenda, I am calling this meeting adjourned.